Welcome to our extra content
for our sharp cutting swords training video. So, let's go over some swords that we didn't talk about that in video fairly quickly. Albion versus Spinona.
Oh, love this sword.
Very good sword. The price point from a training tool point of view doesn't justify it. You get what you pay for, but that's from having a good sword, not from having. It's a good training tool, but not for that extra money.
It's really a sexy sword.
Looking over the cheaper end, Windlass. They have some okay single-handed swords for the price. Avoid their long swords. Hanwei. Likewise, the Tinker line, they tend to be nicer for the price, but I would definitely go with the Cold Steel offerings.
You sharpen those Tinkers pretty frequently. They don't seem to hold an edge very well.
Yeah.
And that's the best of their single-handed cutting swords.
Going back to Cold Steel, they have a lot of swords, and a lot of them aren't so great. You're looking for cutting trainers, hand and a half, the Italian, just like we mentioned.
I honestly don't mind some of the sabers I've cut with.
Okay,
as well.
yes. In terms of medieval swords we're talking about, or the long swords specifically.
Did you like the single-hand sword that you had?
I did. That was the Man-at-Arms sword. I should also mention what the Man-at-Arms line is. They're basically, you can get the Man-at-Arms hand and a half and the Italian. Basically, they're kind of an even cheaper price point. The blade has been blackened. And functionally, they're still, they're quite good. People give or take whether they like the blackening or not. And then you start looking at custom smith manufacturers. Angus Trim on the West Coast makes some fantastic swords. He tends not to have stock models, so all of his different models will have different characteristics, and good luck getting a hold of them because he's in very high demand.
Yeah, he makes some excellent stuff. I have several Angus Trim swords. My wife has a Lady Trim, which is absolutely outstanding.
Arms and Armor makes some very good swords. In terms of, this comes again to the price per training tool. I mean, their swords are very nice, but looking at it from a purely training tool point of view, I don't really think it justifies it. That's when you're looking at the I want a really nice sword point of view. And then there are tons of high quality smiths in Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, that we're really not current on and can't tell you that much about.
However, we did talk, Julie and I had that review on the Cervenka sword, and I mean, that was fantastic. So, that's one smith of many out there, and I follow some of their pages on Facebook just to kind of have the drool factor.
Sharp swords, why do you want to have them around? It's even more important than just the cutting training, which is really important, but there's other aspects to it too.
We have to think like this. How can you call yourself a swordsman if all you're comfortable with is handling like plastic trainers or blunt faders? Like, you're not really a swordsman at that point. You're more of a sportsman. The rounded martial artist has to be comfortable doing flow drills, doing cutting drills, and just generally handling a sharp sword.
Yeah, you can see it right away. You hand a sharp sword to someone and it's just, oh, okay. As opposed to other people, you hand them a sharp sword and they are possibly too comfortable with it. But it's just like, oh, it's a sharp sword. And, you're moving it around, and you should be comfortable moving around a sharp sword like you move your blunt training sword around. There shouldn't be a lot of difference. If there is, that's a problem in your training.
Like one of our more junior students, Erwin, came by, and there's no one here, so we decided to cut bottles. Erwin makes knives as a hobby. He's a young guy. And so I handed him the sharp, and he was a little tense. Junior student. It's like, whoa, I'm cutting with a sharp now. By the end of the lesson, he was fine. But he'd never really worked with a sharp sword before.
And it's also a problem just getting over that when people learn to cut. It's one of the reasons why in cutting tournaments, the experienced cutters can outperform a lot of newer cutters. I mean, they do have more skills, they've trained harder, but also they're not nervous holding the sharp sword. It's not a big deal to them, and that's super important. And imagine you're in a real sword fight. If you're being made nervous by the tool in your hand, That's a problem.
Like even in modern martial arts contexts, like modern war contexts of rifles, of like handguns, pistols, people aren't just training with like airsoft guns, for example. They're not training with those. Some people use them as a training tool. But for the most part, you're on the range, you have a live rifle, you know how to handle it, and you should be out there shooting and putting rounds down range. Like literally, the firearm and the sharp sword, they're the same type of tool for the purpose.
Just close it off with a funny story about eventually get so desensitized to having sharp swords around. We were filming a video once, and we had a ton of sharp swords out all over the floor, and we had to bring the stool onto the floor to hold up a prop for the video. And one of our instructors walks in after we're done filming, mounds of sharp swords strewn across the floor, and his first thing was, "Why is the stool in the middle of the floor?" So this has been Patreon extended content. Thank you for watching it, and thank you very much for supporting us.
And make sure off motorcycle. Jesus.
Just ended on that.